So yeah, anyway, beyond that, there was another film called Angel's Egg. And
Oh, I know Angel's Egg.
yeah, have you seen it?
I've seen bits and pieces.
Okay, Angel's Egg.
I've seen just enough of it to understand how it relates to the Ringed City DLC in Dark Souls 3.
Angel's Egg is a lot. Directed by Mamoru Oshi of Ghost in the Shell fame, and art done by Yoshitaka Amano of Final Fantasy fame.
You can really tell with all the wispiness.
It's gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful things. And yep, wispy blonde characters with their hair in the wind, walking around painterly Souls-esque gothic architecture, shadowy, dark, and brooding. It's difficult because...
What's it about?
Well, Mamoru Oshii doesn't really want you to know.
Oh, cool.
It's beautiful, and it's a movie that, like, it's extremely light on dialogue. It's extraordinarily obtuse, and there's moments where analogies to biblical Noah's Ark and come into play heavily. There's a couple of signs of like things like angels. You see like the bones of an angel with the titular, so to speak, angel. You see fishermen that are trying to catch an army of fishermen that are catching fish that don't exist. They're failing, but they're fishing after shadows. And what I can say is that this movie kind of came out, and Mamoru Oshii had a hard time with his career afterwards because it was so obtuse that people didn't know what to do with it. And it does, now watching it back, it does feel like an art book committed to film.
Yeah.
And for better and for worse, you feel where Amano and Oshi are like, okay, we love gothic architecture, we like pretty girls, we like cool young lads with like weapons on their shoulders and capes, and we're gonna show these things, and that's kind of what we're gonna show. And don't worry too much about the rest of it, in a way. There's cool imagery. You can interpret as the best you can what you're looking at. But everyone was left scratching their heads going, I'm not sure what happened. And there's parts of it that slow the fuck down and get really like you're tilting your head sideways you're like, what are we doing here? And not in a Lynchian way, but in a way where like Lynch will show you a lot of things, but like you won't know what those things are or why they're happening. There won't be things. There'll just be like a lack of things, Yeah. There's a heavy like Ava elevator style scene. It felt like a minute long like single frame shot, at one point. I think by the numbers they said that this movie had like 33% of the shots that an average animated feature does, so like it's way less, but there's these big painterly things you're kind of looking at. Gorgeous, but you just kind of have to go into it going like, I'm not going to understand shit. And to some degree there's an effect that doesn't work in its favor, which is I was describing an episode of Game of Thrones that happens in the late seasons, right? When the horse starts to get into the child's drawing phase of Game of Thrones, where you're following the group that is going beyond the wall, with the wildlings and such, and Jon Snow. And they don't really have any other group to cut to for the whole episode. So they just have moments and scenes of characters doing stuff. Then the camera pans up, and then establishing shot, and then right back down to the same group. And you're like, oh no, we're out of stuff, right?
It's a little awkward.
Suicide Squad, the original movie, exact same problem. They walk, they have a couple quips, camera pans away, pan back to the group, we're still here. We do another quip, we do another scene, pan away, pan back to the group, we're still here.
Yeah, there's no B plot in that fucking movie.
And you feel that in films when they're edited that way, and it feels bad. It feels very bad because it slows down the time, and it makes it feel like, oh, we don't have anything else to teach you or to say or to explain right now. So we're just going to watch the character walk in and do a scene, and then walk out of the scene, and then the next scene with that character will begin. And unfortunately...
But it looks really pretty in this movie, right?
And so this is it looks really pretty, but this is it does feel like an amateur move when, like, the time to move away from a subject or establishing a thing about a character into something else or in a different location, whatever the case is usually you space things out so that you can build up an idea of the whole pieces, and then you let those dominoes all fall, and then they clash together, and then you get to your third act. And here there was not enough pieces moving because there's one main character who was by herself and didn't say anything, so it was her running around with her egg for...
What's in the egg?
We don't know, but that carried on for the first, I'd say, 40% or so, and then eventually there's another character who joins, and they kind of move together. But because they're not talking, and because there's, you're kind of just moving through this environment, which is beautiful, but it does suffer from this problem, right? So we walked out of there going, I don't know what the fuck I just watched. It was gorgeous, but holy shit. Some folks were starting to fall asleep, and I don't blame them, because it does drag,
You watched like the genesis for the entire storytelling perspective of the From Software catalog.
I can see that. I can see Berserk as well being the part of that genesis. That makes more sense in a way, especially when it comes to the characters and the doing of things. Because like an art book showing you beautiful scenes and characters moving through them is what gets Amano fucking hard, and Oshi loves these beautiful like moments as well. But I had to go back and read about what this movie was and what happened, and I learned how we got here and why the obtuseness is as bad as it is, because essentially this was supposed to be a Lupin the Third movie, and
okay, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
And then that didn't happen, and Amano was slated to work on that with Oshi back then. And when that didn't happen, the Angel's Egg idea and the wanting to, and there's a whole like Noah's Ark like theme to this, he wanted to revisit that. So he was planning to make an original, also action comedy. Then he saw Amano's artwork of like all that gothic imagery and went, no, I'm going to make it a more serious gothic tale. And then a scriptwriter that he was working with wrote up his full detailed script and a whole story about it, and then he threw that version out in favor of one with all the words gone, basically. And there's a couple scenes where things happen, and he decided to go back and change them to make them harder to understand on purpose.
I feel like Yoshitaka Amano is the single most prominent artist ever that has had the least amount of his art actually hit the page.
Yeah, the translation.
And so when we talk about something that's like Amano did this and Oshi did this, and it's like, what do you got? I don't know what it is. Pretty.
And I mean, but people love it so much that they're like, I'm going to strive to try to translate this into another medium. I won't capture it at even 50%, but we'll do our best, But in this case, I mean, I feel like the environments especially feel like his final work, Like it feels like they really did realize a lot of his gothic castles and such. But yeah, Angel's Egg was supposed to be a comedy Lupin the Third thing, and then that got scrapped, and then it was going to be like a more coherent story, and then that got scrapped, and then he wanted it to be obtuse. And so the end result was it got, critically acclaimed for its beauty in Japan. A lot of people were like rightfully praising that, but there was one notable negative reception that I saw, and that came from one Miyazaki, Hayao. And he said that he didn't understand the film, and he appreciates the effort, but he feels it was not something others would understand. Oshi goes on a one-way journey without thinking about how to get back. And honestly, he's not wrong.
That's so brutal, man.
He's not wrong.
That's so brutal. Holy shit.
It's gorgeous, but he's not wrong. And as somebody who like there's definitely always room for something to be like kind of left open and to like let the viewer come to you sometimes and such. I you know, but like there's, when you make those decisions, I guess like they're open to critique. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And this is kind of one of those cases where I'm like, I don't think it worked as well, you know? And not that he shouldn't be like able to or willing to try that, but the end result did, like, you kind of lose track of everything going on at a point, despite the beauty. Now, I know that it's a divisive as fuck movie, and if you're somebody who's like, I just love the vibe and that's all that matters, it's gonna be the best thing ever, and that's fair if that's all you were looking for. But I read that and I was like, damn, Miyazaki, I see what you're saying.
If I can pull from a turn of phrase my wife loves to use, if I was a filmmaker and was criticized harshly by Hayao Miyazaki, I would simply kill myself. Oh my god!
So
oh my god!
It's funny because I then read that like Oshi's own mother said that this would result in him not being able to get work, and he struggled to get work after this until Patlabor, and then eventually Ghost in the Shell. And it's weird, but there's, when it comes to like these types of,
hey, did you know that you can tell what's happening in Ghost of the Shell?
You can actually, you absolutely can, yeah.
you can find, like, there's a plot and you're like, oh, that character,
you know, yeah,
went over there.
Yeah, and you know, because ultimately you know, he's adapting you know, the original work and not necessarily in charge of the directing and script and everything else entirely, you know. But anyway, no, what was I gonna say? Yeah, he had a hard time getting work after that, and eventually, like, you know, you kind of broke the spell or so. But there's a difference when you're making these decisions to be obtuse on purpose, right? Yeah, if Masamune Shiro's behind him, then God bless. But when you decide, when something is like being written or a moment happens and you go, huh, you know what? Should we explain more or should we leave that where it is? And you go, I'm going to leave it where it is. Let's leave that. Let's leave that open, you know? I've seen and I mean, I've worked on things where that's been a part of it, where it kind of like, it comes out of the sculpture, so to speak, and then you kind of leave it undefined in a way deliberately. There's a reverse version of that.
I want to hold you on to there because I feel like there's a somatic version of the two ideas you're describing. Like there's a body version, because like one of the things that I think about when you run into like a you know, an obtuse narrative, right? Or like something, there's two things. You can have you can look at, you know, audience man, audience woman. They can either be sitting there with their arms crossed a little bit and their hand on their chin, maybe just like, right? That's good. That's what you want. What you don't want is their hands on their knees and their eyes squinted a little bit going, what?
So
who?
There's two feelings.
Why?
Yeah. Those two feelings.
You don't want that one. That's bad.
And there's also two ways to go about these moments, right? There's ways where you can essentially you can think about the like a character and whatever details you want to say about them and go, let's bring these lines to the forefront, right? So an item description in Souls is a great example of that, about like, we don't know anything about this character except for what we get from their weapon, their soul, you know, these couple of paragraphs or so, right?
When average moviegoer is watching a film, they should not sound like my mother watching an episode of Law and Order.
Okay, getting confused by Law and Order. Okay.
Who is that? Wasn't he the
other way to go about it?
They arrested him.
The other way to go about it is to have it all fleshed out and then take things away. And that can be done, but it's a much more delicate situation to fuck up. And in this case, where you're like, oh, he specifically took moments that existed and said, I want these to be harder to understand. That is my goal. It's like, it's not the same feeling, you know? And I feel like there's a bunch of this where you know, you kind of go, yes, this had more context or more lines, or this had something that was fit better or fit more clearly into the narrative. And then he went, nah, I don't want people figuring it out that easy, and then decided to obtusify it, you know? So anyway, all this to say that it's a gorgeous movie, but fuck, is it a head fuck narratively, and it's a gorgeous art book that is moving, but it is a difficult recommend unless you are down with that art, and that's the entirety of what you're here to experience.
Yeah.
There's a decision to leave the audience behind, and it was made on purpose, and sometimes that works, but in this instance, I don't think it did.
Okay.
This is also an old classic, so it's kind of
it's very old.
It's kind of wild to be pointing at it and saying this, but
you can taste the paper on it.
But this is you know, walking out of the theater with it.
This feels like the kind of movie that like the most annoying guy you know would make his entire personality.
I mean, yeah, it could be. It could be. You know, like there's always Lynch gets those Lynch fans that go that become that person. You know? But in any case, this I didn't get the same vibes from this that I got from Mulholland Drive, mind you. But yeah,
I don't think anyone ever would from anything.
Mm-hmm. or other media that decide to be more quiet and obtuse about things. It feels absent, is what it feels like, you know? Like, if you're showing me things that I don't understand and then kind of like letting me piece together how they might connect, there's more to chew on there. But in this case, it was a lot of like this one girl in this one environment with little things around, but not much in a larger context to, you know, sort of chew on. You know, I described the fisherman and the fish and the shadow thing. Like, that was one of the most standout, unique moments that were not just involving these two characters walking around, you know. And I fucking loved Eco in Shadow of the Colossus. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So anyway. It's beautiful, though.